Current dispatch square break 61 clear.
Good morning. This is Monday, May the 6th, Karen Reed murder trial. Later on, I'll be out in the Mobile to do some stuff.
Hours on scene. Hours will be taken. Vehicle 2, the GMC Parade.
21.
Thank
you. All right, you can publish them, Mr. Lally.
Yeah, return them to the witness as well.
Yes.
I had it turned down, sorry. I was on PA. But this is 72 a.m., 10:23 tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, if I could have the first of those photographs up on the screen. Keep it in large. I don't believe that's the first photograph for you, but if you could locate that within. Sure.
I believe that's Exhibit 30.
If you could just describe and show us what if anything we're looking at in this.
So that is in front of 34 Fairview Road in Canton. It's looking westerly or the direction towards Chapman Street, and it's documenting the conditions at the time.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
Mr. Senator, at any points,
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph, please.
That is simply documenting that the number 34 is on the mailbox. That is 34 Fairview Road.
Do you have a number on that in front of you?
Yes, I do. It's Exhibit 22.
Thank you.
There are two of these, I believe. They're similar. I just want to make sure I have the correct one. 22. That would be 22, yes.
And what's depicted in that photograph, sir, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of the scene in the roadway when you arrived that morning?
It is. It's the mailbox with the number 34 on it, and it shows two vehicles in the driveway of 34 Fairview Road.
And Ms. Gilman, the next photograph. If you could, Lieutenant, when you locate this, indicate which exhibit we're looking at in this one.
That's exhibit 28. It's a different angle of the driveway showing the third car in the driveway. I wanted to document what was in the driveway at that time.
Next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
It's exhibit 29, and basically it documents the same thing. The entirety of the house from I guess it would be a westerly view, and the three cars that were in the driveway at the time I arrived.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
I believe that's exhibit 31, and it's a close-up of where Mr. O'Keefe was found, and you can see the very light pink spotting that we thought may be blood, and there was an object in the center as well, which we didn't know what it was at that time.
Subsequent, did you learn what that object was?
Yes,
What did you learn?
it was a broken clear cocktail glass, and the pink spot was frozen or coagulated blood.
Please, next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
That's exhibit 23, and it's basically showing that the scene was trampled by rescue workers, witnesses, etc. But you can still see, the pink spotting in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was.
As far as footprints within the snow that you observed, you indicated that the scene was trampled or walked over by first responders, correct?
Correct.
And the footprint that you observed, what footprints did you, what areas around where Mr. O'Keefe's, where it was indicated to you that Mr. O'Keefe's body was, where those footprints located?
They were located between the street and where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
And as far as between where Mr. O'Keefe was found and the house of residence at 34th Street, what, if any, footprints did you observe in that area?
I didn't observe any footprints at that time.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for the next photograph, please.
That is exhibit 24, and it's showing a westerly shot of the scene. So it's found in this area here, and it depicts the wind blowing in that direction at the time.
And probably pretty self-evident, but depicts the wind blowing in that direction based on what?
Yeah, the flag flying.
The next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
That is exhibit 20. That is the I believe it's called a 6-inch Cape Cod asphalt berm that separated the roadway from the property of 34 Fairview. And this is the long look to where Mr. O'Keefe was discovered.
The next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
Again, that's a close-up of one of the exhibits we saw earlier. Again, you can see the spotting and the glass here. This is, I believe this is exhibit 26.
So, next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
This is Exhibit 27, and it's some what we believe was frozen or coagulated blood spotting.
Next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
And that's a different view, close-up of the scene, and that's Exhibit 32.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
That's when we first uncovered the berm, the 6-inch berm, and it's just a smaller picture close-up of that berm. It's Exhibit 25.
Reference to the sort of uncovering of the berm as you described it, what, if anything, did you use to uncover the berm?
I believe we just used our foot to uncover that.
And what I believe is the last photograph.
This is the location from the berm to where Mr. O'Keefe was found. It's just a long view, and it's Exhibit 21.
May I approach you and just?
Yes, yes. Tori.
Now, as far as the cruisers with the Canton Police Department, what, if any, sort of recording equipment are they equipped with?
They're with dash cameras, watch guard cameras.
And what, if anything, have you done to review some of that dash camera footage from the cruisers, from that?
I've reviewed all of it.
And specifically, have you reviewed dash camera footage from the 683 cruiser, Officer Sarah's cruiser?
Yes, I did.
And if I may, I would ask that it's already been marked as Exhibit 12. I would ask that a portion of that be played for the jury at this time.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could fast forward this to approximately 57 minutes or so into the. Can you recognize what's up on the screen as well? And what do you recognize?
That's the video I referred of Canton Cruiser 683 on, it's dated January 29th, 2022 at 7, if the time is correct, 7:02:54.
And around this time, within this video from Officer Sarah's cruiser, what, if anything, did you observe occurring within that cruiser camera?
I believe it's at approximately 57:17. You'll see Sergeant Good begin to mark out the scene with a yellow crime scene tape. You'll see him in front of the cruiser at first. Him, Officer Mullaney, and Sergeant Lank walk off, and then you'll see Sergeant Good stretching out the crime scene tape.
And if you could, sir, as the video is playing, using the laser pointer that you have before you, just draw the jury's attention to who, if anyone, you observe or recognize within that.
Yes.
Just come in.
The yellow tape it is. there's two officers with yellow crime scene tape. I believe this is Officer Mulaney, but I'm not sure. I know this is Sergeant Good.
And my apologies, Mr. Chairman, if you address this right again.
That's Detective Sergeant Lank in the lighter coat. Sergeant Good and Lank, they walk off camera. You'll see Sergeant Good come into the picture right here. They're stretching out the crime scene tape. You can see it flapping in the wind there. See it raise way up because of the wind. This is the crime scene tape here. And I'm not sure what they affixed it to, whether it was the cruiser at that point or not. But you can see the crime scene tape going across the scene that way.
Gentlemen, if you could pause it right there for a moment. So, Lieutenant Gallagher, in addition to sort of the crime scene tape that you observed in this video, what, if anything else, did you get from the station to attempt to sort of secure the scene or place at the scene?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you get a tent at the station?
Excuse me?
A tent at the station?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
And why not?
I had a tent with me from home. It was a personal 8x8 tent at that time.
And so at any point in time on the scene, were you able to set up that tent that you retrieved from your home?
Due to the weather conditions, we did not set it up because it would have required officers holding it down, and we didn't think the top would stay on.
And again, maybe pretty self-evident, but when you say due to the weather conditions, what, if anything, about the weather conditions prevented you from setting that tent up always?
There was high winds, shifting directions, a large amount of snow falling.
Ms. Kelly, if I could ask, if we could just pull forward in that video to about the 1 hour, 7 minute mark. Yeah, you get a play from that. Lieutenant, what, if anything, are we looking at in this portion?
If you look closely, it's the crime scene tape that's flowing around. Right now you can't see it. Or I cannot see it from here.
Is this around the point where the decision was made to take that down? Is that correct?
It was later on, I observed the same thing, and I told the officers it wasn't doing any good at that time. And there were nobody to keep out of the scene at that point. It was only police personnel on scene.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kelly, you can stop and take it down. Thank you very much. Now, with reference to the implementation of the leaf, was that memorialized in any way as well?
Yes, I had Sergeant Good take a video since we were improvising using something I wasn't familiar with being used before in case there were any questions on how it was deployed. I had Sergeant Good take a short video.
And there's sort of several different short video clips of that process. Is that fair to say?
There's at least one that I know of.
Coach?
Yes.
we're 491, Adam Dam. 491, Adam Dam. 6 operations.
So it's showing you the difference, you recognize that?
I don't recognize it. I haven't seen this disc before.
May we approach?
We're on Miami Trail and 262 on an inspection.
9546.
Hi, Samantha. Thank you for this morning.
District 1, Dave 401 Westport Avenue. Male in a green Mazda car, possibly having a heart attack. Third party caller. Vehicle is parked in front of the building. Male is conscious.
Later on this afternoon, people, I gotta leave sometime after lunch. And so I hope they take their break around 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm hoping. But last night, you see, I uploaded a video on poetry. My first poetry reading out of the book that Noreen Snyder sent me that I won. And I want you all to go to Noreen Snyder out of Lake Wells, Florida. Anybody who lives in Lake Wells, Florida, check on this young lady. She's a widow, all alone, don't have an automobile to get around. They had a sidebar, in case some of you don't know what it is.
Okay.
She was set up in my book. Where is O'Keefe's shoe? How come that cop and his wife didn't come out of the house? He's a first responder. Maybe because he had bruises on his face, maybe what he was in the fight. That's reasonable doubt. There's too many questions on answer, people.
My father's arm, may we approach this?
Okay. Just feel free to stick.
As you see, they said include second-degree murder, death of O'Keefe. They said, also drunk, but I don't remember them giving a breathalyzer or blood work. Something strange here, people. I've saw other court videos that the cop screwed their botched investigation. Jury found him not guilty. So there's something weird going on here. Just take your time, write things down. There's just too many unanswered questions. I want to thank all your new subscribers. I want to thank the expert. I love to get on his show and get more subscribers. I'm nobody, low income, live out in the country on a fixed income between $800 to $900 a month, live on a budget. I will give a shout out to your ladies out there who've been abused. It's not your fault. You new YouTubers, don't be afraid. Don't give up. If any new ladies on here, you could do a YouTube channel on the abuse that you went through and the help you got, this and that. Thank you all very much for joining today.
John, with the court information that I published, what's now been marked as 30. Around the good if I present the
Yes.
anyway, it's 1 third. Sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could just pause it right there. And Lieutenant Gallagher, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
And what do you recognize?
It's me operating the leaf blower and at the scene where John O'Keefe was discovered.
And who is operating the leaf blower in these videos?
I am.
And who, if anyone else from your department, is sort of present while this process is going?
Detective Sergeant Lank is documenting, and Sergeant Good is also assisting.
And Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. If you could just...
You do not use a leaf blower because you're going to blow evidence away. You use
removes the snow,
a broom or
layer by
something.
layer. And right here, you can see it exposing the cocktail glass. You're going to see red spots appear as I remove it layer by layer.
You see
These pink
up
spots
there
turn to
that
be
they
dark
blowing
red spots.
glass away.
As you see, we can control it. We were
Why
concerned
didn't
with
he
whatever
use a push broom or a
Hold on,
paintbrush?
wait for a question.
He blowing evidence away. That is wrong. I've never seen this happen
As you
at
can
a
see, it just
crime
makes it layer
scene.
by layer.
Hold on for a second. Mr. Lally, Ms. Gilman, can you pause it? So if you have a question for the lieutenant, all right, you're asking him to narrate the whole thing. We're not going to do it that way. And you can pause and then question. It's great you're keeping your voice up over the sound of the leaf blower, but it's a little distracting.
I understand now.
So do you have a question, Mr. Lally?
Just briefly at this point, so Lieutenant Gallagher, with respect to as you're conducting this sort of process, what, if anything, are you concerned about as far as throughout the process of trying to locate evidence?
Were we concerned with the weather destroying biological evidence at that time?
And
They
so
should
what, if
use a
anything,
paintbrush or something like
we were
that.
trying
You
to
don't
take
use a
the,
leaf blower.
The snow that had fallen
blowing
over the blood,
evidence
we were trying
away.
to remove it to expose the blood.
How many
and
other
let's say
crime
about
scenes
this
you see
sort
him
of
do
removal
stupid
process, how
stuff
much
like
snow were
that?
you able to sort of sift layer by layer with the leaf blower?
We could control how much I wanted to sift. I did it I started out as gently as possible, and if it needed, more snow needed to be removed, I got a little more aggressive.
Thanks. Ms. Gilman, if you could, good one. And the next video, Nick.
Hit the thumbs up.
116, 102, reference to Pitbull.
Ms. Gilman, if you could play the third video, please.
We're contacting animal control.
Gilman, if you could play the last video, please. And Mr. Officer, you can look at that. Thanks. Lieutenant, with reference to that process, how far deep into the snow were you able to go with using that leaf blower in that manner?
We get almost to the ground, bare ground.
As far as sort of a surface area, like how much of that area where Mr. O'Keefe was found were you able to use the leaf blower on?
It was approximately a 6x6, 7x7 type area.
And from that area, what, if anything, in addition to the cocktail blast pieces that you already testified to and the red spots on the ground, what, if anything else did you observe?
We didn't observe anything at that point. Anything else, just the blood in the glass.
Now, Lieutenant, during the time that you were on scene, with reference to the neighborhood in general, how many people did you observe sort of come out of their house at any point in time?
I didn't observe anybody ever come out of their house.
And that includes the residents that you were in front of, as well as any other residences along that street, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, at some point, about how long a period of time, if you know, were you on scene that particular morning?
Approximately 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes.
And following that, where did you go?
We brought the exhibits back to Camp Police Headquarters.
And by that you mean the glass and what you had collected of the blood?
Yep, we took 6 blood samples, yes.
And how were you able to sort of collect the blood samples on scene?
Well, blood samples, because they were frozen, we debated on how to collect it. We didn't think swabbing was going to be easy to do if it was frozen. So we decided on finding some type of temporary plastic evidence container. We were able to find large cups, and we took 6 samples. We bagged the 6 samples, and Sergeant Lang transported them back to Camp Police Headquarters.
And with respect to those samples and piece of glass that you located, eventually, what, if anything, was done with those? Well, first and foremost, when you came back to Camp Police Station, what, if anything, did you do with them?
Chief Berkowitz was at headquarters, and we had a meeting in the detective sergeant's office.
What I'm asking, sir, is with reference to those items that you took back from Fairview, when you got back to the station, what, if anything, did you do?
Sergeant Lang placed them into evidence.
And then subsequent to Sergeant Lang placing them as evidence at some point, where did they go?
They were turned over on February 1st to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
And was that something where they were driven to the crime lab, or did the crime lab come to the station?
The crime lab was already at the station.
Now, you go back to the police station and have some conversation with your chief, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what was your chief's name?
Chief Berkowitz, Kenneth Berkowitz.
And following that conversation, at some point, did you return to Fairview Road that morning?
I did.
And who, if anyone, did you go there with?
I accompanied Detective Sergeant Lang.
And when you arrived, where did you go with reference to residents?
We went into a side door, and there were people in the kitchen at that time.
Okay, the blood sample. It was mixed with snow. It dilutes a sample.
Who I remember specifically was Jen McCabe.
You all
who
real
I
smart people.
don't know
are
personally,
here.
but I know because that's who Sergeant Lang
blood
arrived to
sample
talk
is
to. And I
diluted.
knew Brian Albert.
You all
in a
know what
professional
that
sense.
means.
And so Brian Albert is also a police officer, is that correct?
He was Boston police officer, yes.
Now, as far as any other people, who, if anyone else, were you introduced to when you came into the kitchen area?
I wasn't introduced to anybody. All I know is there were 5 or 6 people there.
And are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of Brian Higgins?
I am.
How are you familiar?
He is an ATF agent who I've worked with when I was assigned to DEA, and he later had a satellite office at our PD.
And in reference to your work with the DEA, how long did you work with the DEA?
13 years.
And so, Mr. Higgins, was he present in the home on Fairview when you arrived there that morning?
I don't recall him. When I arrived originally, definitely not. I don't recall if he was there when we arrived about 9 a.m.
So you don't recall him being there at all?
I don't recall specifically. I never had any conversation with him.
Now, you had made some mention of February 1st, a few days later, at your department, there were members from the crime lab that came, correct?
That is correct.
And what, if anything, did they come there to do?
They were assisting the state police in executing a search warrant on a motor vehicle.
And where was that motor vehicle in relation to your department?
It was in our Sally Port.
If you could just describe to the jury, so what is it, Sally Port, specifically the Camden Police, like where is it located, what does it look like?
Sure, it's on the rear portion of our police department. They are large overhead doors that are numbered, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We only have 2 bays. So the Sally Port that the vehicle was in, typically we enter through door 4 and you would exit through door 3. Those doors, overhead doors, can only be controlled by a computer in the dispatch center. And it's where we bring in our prisoners. Once the Sally Port goes up, you enter, close the door, the area is secure. The rest of the PD is only accessible by access card, key access card.
As you mentioned, sort of the overhead garage doors are accessible only by the dispatch area, is that correct?
That is correct, a computer in the dispatch area.
And then as far as entrance from the department, how if at all is that controlled?
There is a, to the right of Sally Port 4, there is a key card access door.
Now, with reference to that Sally Port area, is there, what if any cameras are located in that area?
I know there's cameras in the area. I don't specifically know where they are. I typically don't look for them. I know it is under surveillance, as most of our department is.
And have you reviewed at least portion or the entirety of the Sally Port video from that particular day, February 1st?
I've seen a small portion, yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you recognize what's depicted on that particular flash drive?
Yes.
Okay, what is depicted on that, sir?
CPD Sally Port videos.
And on phone, we'll seek to introduce in a minute as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor. If I may, at this time, seek to publish a portion of Exhibit 34 for the jury.
Okay.
And one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
So, Mr. Ms. Gilman, if I could have the portion that's February 1st, that covers 12 a.m. to 12 noon.
WM SRA 330, XWF 330.
Repeating for retail voting event, partially due on a sick person in Westminster Village, 2200 North Green Tree Boulevard, 1122.
What?
Woodward Drive, Rockwood Drive, timeout 10:23.
Here's number 21, bottom. Yeah.
Check pending at 601 South High Street here in Versailles. Colors of other issue will be the residence until.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to just fast forward that to approximately 9:11 a.m. If you could just pause.
Why don't we take our morning recess? Why don't we take a 10-15 minute recess?
All right, here we go.
Nancy. Right, so we're still in session. So in presenting the exhibits to be marked, please take them out of the plastic and out of the envelopes because the actual item itself gets a sticker on it. That would just save a little time. We're having all sorts of difficulties. FTR is not working. I'm not sure that we're getting any internet in here. Are we all set with this? Is this something? Do you want to use the flash drive that you put in? Does that help? Or you?
No, I think the initial issue I think is sort of the size of the video. So bringing it up can be a little. My issue is that as I was standing over there, I couldn't really see anything as far as the screen.
It's dark.
That dark when you put it on.
I couldn't open any of this weekend on my home computer, on my work computer. So, All right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess?
All right, step forward, please.
And unable to walk. This was from a third-party caller.
Hey there, Karen Reed trial watchers. You know what a lot of the trials we cover remind me? It's that you gotta be careful who you surround yourself with, who you let into your life. Do you really know? I mean, it's a scary thing to think about. Well, that's why I'm so thrilled to talk to you about the sponsor of this week's Law and Crime Trial stream, truthfinder.com. Honestly, with our content, I really can't think of a better service that can provide actual safety for you guys. Why do I say that? I say that because Truthfinder is one of the largest public records search services in the United States. Their whole goal is to help people like you learn about the people in their lives. And here's how it works. You go on their website, truthfinder.com, and you type in a name. For instance, your new neighbor. Let's say your new neighbor is me, Jesse Weber. Make it easy. You type in my name, and within minutes and a paid subscription purchase, you can access unlimited reports that could include information like phone numbers, location history, criminal and traffic records, including possible arrests and criminal convictions. Goes without saying, but I don't have any of those. Truthfinder has been partnering with Law and Crime for a while now. We actually use it to research some of the cases that we've been covering. But in general, it can help provide peace of mind when you do these unlimited public records searches. Also, you know what's really useful? From within that report, you can search an address to see registered sex offenders that may live in that area too. That's the point. Unless you use Truthfinder, you may never know the reality about the people around you. Also, Truthfinder is just an incredible resource to use when reconnecting with people like long-lost friends, family members you haven't spoken to in a while. You can use Truthfinder to help track down these people's information. It's just a great tool. And here's the kicker. Right now, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/LCLive.
Okay, people. Them defense lawyers, prosecutor, since this is live on all channels, you know, Court TV and other channels, the defense got to be careful, or the defendant got to be careful, because some of these people on here got people who can read lips. When a defendant is talking to their lawyer, the person that reads lips knows what they're saying to the defense lawyer, vice versa. So I know, you know, you all need to get a hold of these lawyers in this case, because people might be reading the lips of Miss Reed, what she tells her lawyer. That's something to think about, people. You have a whole lot of deaf people probably watching. So you lawyers out there gotta be careful. Make sure the cameras can't see you talking to your defendants or your witness, because that'll let the cat out of the bag. So just remember your defense lawyers. You know, make sure the cameras cannot see your witness or your defendant. I'm hoping I made a good point since they're on a 10-minute break. As I told you, I gotta leave sometime around lunchtime. So I will cut that off. Then I'll be doing a live stream of my trip. You know. That way you all could see where I'm going in case there's an accident or anything like that. So I'm just letting you know some facts out there for your lawyers. Maybe you never thought of it. Your football coaches, basketball coaches, when you're on TV, make sure you cover your lips up, because there is people there that can read lips that's watching it. Same as here. You got people that is reading the lips of the witness, defense table. So be careful. You know. But also, where the prosecutor called for a witness, that guy at the house, where the defense called that person in the house. There's something weird about that. He's a police officer, a first responder. He has his police radio. He had his police scanner. He bound to hear it goes off and his address. Something's fishy here. You know, what did they interview this police officer that lives in that house or his wife? From what I've seen so far, no. Why wasn't it? Could he had scratches on his face or bruises were possible? He got in the fight with O'Keefe, that cop who passed away. There's too many questions out there in my book. It needs to be answered. Like I say, I'm dumb in some things, I'm smart in some things. But common sense tells you all, look at it. What's missing here? Where is that O'Keefe's shoes? They never did find his shoe. Could the shoes be in the house? You know, there's questions that needs to be answered. You know, what I read, I've seen on Court TV, Law and Crime, and other channels, something's fishy in Denmark. You people, it's in the other countries. I like to have your opinion. Some of you might be police officers, lawyers. I like for MG Law to cover, because since he's a lawyer, the expert, I believe he's a lawyer. And there's too many questions I would like to have answered. You know, something's weird here. It sounds like second-degree murder for the death of O'Keefe. You know, she claims that she is being set up. People, I believe it. You heard the other day, I think it was Friday, that the paramedics referred to her as his wife, but throughout the whole trial, boyfriend, girlfriend. So what's going on there? Are they married? Or is it boyfriend, girlfriend? Remember, I think the first week you saw where she backed out of the driveway, ran into, I think it was a pickup truck or SUV. That's where she got her taillight busted out. Then later, when I think it was last week, you saw the SUV there. It didn't have the whole tail light lens in. There's no way you hit a car like that or SUV, you're going to lose the whole light. Tail light, you will lose pieces of it. So that's weird, people. Think about it. Dig in your mind. Do you see it like I see it? You know.
Central Florida Jewish.
You know, it's only my opinion. I want to say hi to Noreen Snyder, Lake Wells, Florida. You people got a nice town when I've seen on videos in Lake Wells, Florida. She's a widow. I'm not going to give her address, but you all probably know her. She doesn't have an automobile to get to the grocery store, church, post office, stuff like that. So check on her, see how she's doing. And people, I'm requesting that you go to her YouTube channel, Noreen Snyder. If you like poetry, she does poetry on her channel. Please subscribe to her channel. Her and her husband been married a long time until she lost him, I believe, 3 years ago. Another thing, people, check on your neighbors. Old, handicapped, see if they're okay. If you live right next door to them, see if you can get an emergency contact phone number who might have a key in case the police, ambulance, or somebody showed up and they don't have to kick the door in. That's something to think about, people. You people have got daughters, nieces, aunts, cousins. You know how they act all the time. If their attitude change or what, they could be abused. Is their mate with them all the time or keeping a close eye? That's some of the signs of women abuse. You people can go online and look for the signs of women abuse. I've always been told, if you hear it, you see it, you report it. I'm asking you all to do it. If it's not a woman being abused, it might be a child. You could save the person's life by reporting it. If you can, videotape it if you can. Without, I know you all don't want to get involved. I'm 70 plus years old. If I see stuff like that, I'm going to call it in because I'm 70 plus years old. I done lived my first, early years. But the women and the children are just getting started. So I want you all to pray for those ladies who gets abused and afraid to leave. The reason I talk about abused women, I know this lady that lives in Scott County, Indiana, or it's Scottsburg area, Lexington, Indiana, other places like that in Scott County. She's afraid to leave because her husband threatened to kill her and the kids. I'm a question you people of the Sheriff's Department in Scott County, Scottsburg PD, Austin PD. I know you all got police reports of women getting abused. I would go back and check on them if they still could be in it and afraid to leave. You all police officers knows about stuff like this. I'm hoping I can make a good point for your YouTubers out there. And people, don't give up on your YouTube channel. You hear me talk about my medical history. When I was younger, I got kids everywhere, but different women. Your kids gonna inherit the wife and mother's medical problems. They need to know that. Because if they go to the doctor or hospital, they need to know it. No matter if you live here in the USA or outside in them countries. Think of your family, your loved one. Your children needs to do that. By you doing it on YouTube or stuff like that, if something ever happens to you, your kids or your grandkids can go back to look at daddy and mommy and what they look like back there at so-and-so time. You know, at least they have a memory of it, what you look like, where they never forget you. If you have a will, I would want you to have a lawyer for the administrator. Don't trust your family. That's where I got screwed by my brother. He owes me over $90,000. Plus, he stole from me and my mom and my grandma. You know, he retired from Ford's. So, don't really trust your family being an administrator of the will, because they put the shaft teeth. That's my opinion, because that's what I've been going through. And I've talked to other people that went through the same thing. So, if you know a good lawyer when you make your will up, see if they can recommend lawyers to be the administrator. You know. That's something, excuse me, that you should do. Don't trust your family to be the administrator. The lawyer goes by what's in the will. And could I say, you want to be buried. Well, some family members say, I just cremate them. We have more money. See, families worrying about money. They don't care about your wishes. Just think about it. You can do prepaid funerals. Well, you pay for your casket, your tombstone, everything. Make sure it's all paid up. Because like in case of my mother, it was paid up back in the 60s. Grandpa and them died 68, I think. That's when Dad and Mom bought 4 grave spaces for Grandpa and Grandma, Mom and Dad. And it was all paid up by the time my dad died in April of '92. Everything was paid for. But Grayson's Funeral Home in Charleston, Indiana, put the shaft to me and my brother. Charge them, I think, $1,000 more for the funeral. Charge them $100 and something to cut the date on the tombstone. Okay. I'll let you know something. Back there then, when you bought a stone, you paid to cut the date when you was born. You also paid for that when you died at that time. That's how it was back there then. For some reason, Grayson's Funeral Home charged them for cutting the date they died. So somebody got some money back. Could have been my brother. But when my mom passed away in February of 17, 18, 17, 16, somewhere in there, my brother didn't call me. It was the undertaker 2 days later. I didn't have no say-so in anything. Went there and I asked him if they had this song, because my mother was the grand organist for Eastern Star, I believe, Lodge 226 in Charlestown. My dad was a Mason. Okay. My mom played for, she didn't like CD. And there's a group of young ladies, I believe they're in Canada, called Daisy and something, Dancing in the Sky. You all remember that song. You can go to their YouTube channel and play it. And that's one I played at my mom's funeral, but the funeral director, Chris Grayson, had to look at my brother, see if that was okay. You know, that song described my mother right to detail. Thank you all for watching. Hit the subscribe bell.
Court of session, please be seated.
All right, are we all set with the screen? Okay.
And again, it may be better with the lights on. So it may be a little bit. If we could please the light back on. Lieutenant Gallagher, again, from this video from approximately 9:11 in the morning, you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
If you could just, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, significant should observe in this particular part of this video.
This is our Sally Port. You would come in Sally Port 4, exit Sally Port 3, like I said earlier. This is the vehicle they were executing a search warrant on, and this is the crime scene tape.
And as far as personnel from the state police that were present there, who, if anyone, was present there that you knew or were aware of?
I knew Trooper Proctor was there, and I knew the criminologist was there, and a photographer. I don't know them by name.
So a couple people from the lab, one taking photos, one criminalist, is that correct?
Correct.
As well as Trooper Proctor?
That's correct.
Do you know Trooper Proctor?
I knew of him. I don't believe I ever met him prior to this. He has worked some cases with our detectives. I knew he was assigned to the DA's office, but I'm not sure if I ever met him prior to this case.
Now, with reference to the vehicle, what, if anything, was placed around the vehicle, or did you observe around the vehicle?
There's crime scene tape, as you can see the yellow tape right there.
Just to be clear, the sort of, which part of the vehicle is sort of in the lower foreground of this vehicle?
This is the passenger side rear of the vehicle.
Let's see it.
Now, at some point over the course of the time that you were there on February 1st, what, if any, other sort of specialized units within the state police were also present?
Eventually, I think they call it the CARS team. It's what I would call their, I guess, accident reconstruction team responded.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to fast forward within that video to approximately 9:44.
Why can't we see it?
That's fine. A little bit back. Right there. If you could do this one. Now, Lieutenant, during this part of the video, in addition to the people that you've already referenced, who, if anyone else, was in the crowd at that time?
It's hard for me to say. I believe this is the criminalist. I believe if this is Trooper Proctor, this is me with the gray shirt, dress shirt walking in. That's me right there. And that's Trooper Proctor. I believe the photographer or another criminologist is here. I don't know what their title is.
Now, at some point during the execution of these search warrants, what, if any, issues did you become aware of with regard to the criminals?
They were having trouble. They were trying to remove the housing to the tail light, passenger side tail light, and they were having difficulty removing it.
And what, if any, assistance did you offer with regard to
I told him that we had an officer working who was in charge of our fleet maintenance and our mobile operations unit who probably had the tools to do it. And he also had vast, extensive experience in auto body.
Who was that, sir?
That's Officer Brian Wanless.
And what, if anything, did you do with reference to Officer Wanless in regard to that area of the car?
I asked dispatch to ask him to return at approximately, I think it was 9:50.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to, not already there, move it up to 9:51 a.m.
Well, this guy has gloves on. How about the other technicians there? Do they have gloves on? That looks like somebody there that didn't have gloves right here.
So with reference to this particular portion of the video,
If you look right,
direct the jury's attention to when
right
you see
there,
Wanless and
it don't look
when you
like
see
that
someone
person
with that
has
vehicle.
gloves on.
And Ms. Gilman, for your purposes, what I would ask is we run this from essentially 9:51 a.m. through to about 9:58 and 30 seconds.
No, that one guy had gloves on because it's blue. How about right there? Yeah, they both have gloves.
This is Officer Wanless right here.
Okay, he did not have any
And he
gloves
leaves
on.
momentarily.
This guy here didn't have any gloves. Now he's putting
He
gloves
dons a pair of
on.
gloves.
So
And he
People,
exits, and
it's
he's going to
weird.
come back with some tools.
anybody knows you gotta have gloves on. So it's weird. Reasonable doubt, people.
There he comes. Places his toolkit on the tailgate. Ejection order.
Okay, pause and ask a question.
And from your review of this video, what, if anything, you observe Officer Wanless do with reference to that rear passenger side cellar?
He re-enters the sally port and with some tools, and he places his toolkit down on the tailgate of the Lexus.
And what, if anything, you observe do after that?
He begins to work on the housing of the tail light.
Ms. Gilman, if you could press. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take it. Lieutenant, with respect to the items that you and the other officers recovered from 34 Fairview on the 29th, the criminalist that was depicted in that video, is that who you gave those items to?
I believe so, yes.
You gave those items to her directly, correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as that particular, I believe you testified earlier that you were looking to preserve biological matter, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that your search of that area was confined to sort of where it was described to you, Mr. O'Keefe, in the found, correct?
That is correct.
Now, turning back again just to February 1st, I'm sorry to jump around, but back to February 1st, at some point you mentioned there was a crash reconstructions from the state police, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what, if anything, did you aid or assist or facilitate with reference to crash reconstructionists around the police station?
When they wanted to test the vehicle, I secured the parking lot. I advised no cruisers to return to the station, and I blocked the entryway with my marked cruiser and remained in my cruiser.
And later on that day, February 1st, where, if anywhere, did you go with respect to the crash reconstruction?
We went to 34 Fairview.
In addition to yourself and the trooper from the crash reconstruction, who, if anyone else, went with you?
Trooper Proctor was present.
And why did you go along with the troopers to that location?
Just so there was a Canton officer present. If any residents came out, I could communicate with them.
And to your knowledge, had Trooper Proctor been to Fairview prior to that date?
I have no knowledge if he had been there or not.
What, if anything, did you direct either Trooper Proctor or the crash reconstructionist to once you were on scene?
I brought him to the area of where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
You showed them where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes.
Now, turning your attention to, well, one on scene that day with Trooper Proctor and the crash reconstructionist, what, if anything, did you observe them doing?
I believe they were discussing, they were trying to place a drone up in the air, I believe, to map out the area.
Objection.
Did you see that? Or do you want me to strike the, I believe they were trying to?
That'd be okay.
All right, so that will be stricken, but your observation will remain.
Now, with reference, if I could draw your attention to February 4th of 2022, were you working that day?
I wasn't.
And at some point, did you receive a call in regard to this case, this investigation?
I did.
And who, if anyone, called?
Chief Berkowitz.
And what, if anything, did Chief Berkowitz indicate?
He asked me if I was working. When I told him no, he asked who was.
And who, if anyone, did you indicate to him was working?
I told him Detective Sergeant Lank was working.
And as far as what, if anything, was that call in reference to?
He stated he was driving in the area of 34 Fairview because of the warm weather and the warm rain in the last couple of days.
And what, if anything, did he indicate?
He believed.
Sustained. I'm going to see you at sidebar, please.
Squad 10 at 1100.
DOLEMAN, first name David, middle initials Mary, date of birth 1990, 10/29. He's gonna be signal 40, and he could allow him on the water.
4525.
Okay, sir, turn clear up to it.
I can make that up. That one. Squad 12 at 1101.
And so, just to be clear, Lieutenant, you did not go to Fairview Road on February 4th, 2022, correct?
I did not.
I have nothing further for this one.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lieutenant.
Good morning.
When was the first time you were ever interviewed about your conduct on this case, your involvement in this case?
I don't recall.
It was about a month ago, wasn't it? April 3rd, 2024?
When I was interviewed by, I don't know who you're referring to.
A formal interview by any law enforcement agency.
Oh, I was never, until about a month ago, trial prep, I was not interviewed, correct.
And that interview was conducted by whom?
I met at the DA's office with the prosecutor, Adam Lally.
And there was also a state trooper there?
There was.
Lieutenant Tully?
Correct.
Okay. So Michael Proctor never formally interviewed you about your involvement in the case?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your involvement on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your recovery of any physical evidence at the scene?
No, sir.
Which would include the blood stains as well as the piece of drinking glass?
That's correct.
Okay. Never interviewed and how it made its way back to Canton Police Department?
He never interviewed me, no.
And his partner, Yuri Butnik, also, I won't go through the litany of things, never interviewed you as well?
Correct.
And until April 3rd, 2024, nobody from the DA's office had interviewed you either?
That's correct.
Did you write a report about your involvement in the case?
Not on that particular day.
Did you write a report after that?
Yes.
When did you write that report?
Possibly January 2023. I believe it was the request for the metadata, the acquisition of the photos report.
Okay, fair enough. Did you ever, I'll narrow my question, did you ever write a report about your involvement on the day at the scene?
No, I did not.
Okay. So that's not documented, at least by you, that's not documented anywhere?
That's correct.
Did you take notes when you were at the scene?
No.
Did you go back to the station and memorialize your findings and your conduct at the scene by taking notes back at the station?
No, I did not.
So you have no notes and no report about anything that happened at Fairview on the 29th?
Cover
Not
up,
myself, no.
cover up.
Were you ever instructed by any superior? You're pretty high up in the ranks. You reported to whom?
At that time, I reported to the chief of deputy chief of police.
Right, either the deputy chief or the chief.
Correct.
Did either the deputy chief or the chief instruct you, Lieutenant, don't worry about writing a report in this case?
No, they never said anything like that.
You would agree that it's one thing to respond to a scene, it's another thing to actually gather evidence at a scene.
That's correct.
Especially a scene where it's a potential, at that time, a potential homicide of a police officer.
That's correct.
Part of the reason for annotating, memorializing exactly what evidence is recovered is so you can relay that to other officers, correct?
Correct.
So for instance, in your direct examination just a few minutes ago, you said that you went back to the scene at one point. What was the date where the drone was considered?
February 1st.
You go back to the scene on February 1st. That's 3 full days after the event, correct?
That is correct.
After the incident. And you said, I directed them to where John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
But in fact, you never saw John O'Keefe's body, did you?
That's correct.
Okay, so you were giving them information that you had about which you had no personal knowledge, correct?
I
had knowledge from other officers. I did not see John O'Keefe at the scene. He was transported to the hospital.
How come he didn't have nothing in a report? Something strange about
Not
this.
precisely.
From head to toe, right?
Not precisely.
Where his arms or his hands were.
That is correct, yes.
He's a 6'2" man, correct?
I don't know.
You don't even know that?
I don't know his size, no.
If I told you that he's over 6 feet tall, would you have any quarrel with that?
If Mr. Lally told me, I would take it as fact.
For purposes of my question, you don't.
I think
you don't
he's
wanna take my
lying.
word for it, but
Every time
for purposes
he
of this
lies,
question,
he's
assuming that
coughing.
he's over 6 feet tall.
You know, that's
there's
my
a better than
opinion.
6 foot margin for where he would be situated in the snow, correct? From toe to head.
Correct.
And the details matter in a case like this. In the investigation, the details matter.
Surely.
Good job.
Accuracy is vital in a homicide investigation, correct?
Correct.
You did find some blood droplets. We saw it on the screen, correct?
Correct.
You also found part of a drinking glass, correct?
That is correct.
Did you engage or did you endeavor to make a diagram of exactly where those items were found?
No.
You're aware, as you were the former chief of detectives?
I was a detective sergeant.
Detective sergeant. You were supervisor over detectives.
Correct.
You're aware what cross coordinates are in measuring a crime scene, correct?
Yes.
You take a stable item like a flagpole, for instance, that might be one that doesn't move. You measure exactly from a compass position, exactly north or exactly west, a number of inches, maybe even down to meters and millimeters if you use that instead of inches, using meters, right?
Yeah, we don't employ that process.
So you don't employ a process where you could measure something from a known item north, south, east, or west, and then measure it from another known item and have an exact cross point of where that's
We don't typically exercise in that in our investigative unit.
Why
You knew
is
how to do that, though.
Yes.
I mean, you've been trained on how to do that.
Yes.
But you didn't employ that technique here.
No.
So the glass, where the glass was found, it's sort of an estimate.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. And where the blood was found, that's kind of an estimate also.
Yeah, we would guess that would be where his body was. Yes.
Okay. You just used the word guess.
Yes.
But if you had actually documented it using cross coordinates, you wouldn't have to guess. You'd know exactly where the tip of his head was, where the tip of his toes were, correct?
No.
Why not?
Because he wasn't there when we got there.
Fair enough. When I say you, I meant other officers. If someone had employed that before he was moved, they could have figured out exactly how he was situated, where he was in that yard, correct?
It would never happen. Life-saving measures come first. The officers are not going to start measuring while first responders are conducting life-saving measures. It doesn't happen.
That's exactly right. But once the body was moved, for instance, Officer Saraf, who's literally standing there, could have said, okay, I just saw the tip of his head right here. He's now on the gurney. He could have measured that, right?
He could have, yes.
And then he could have said the tip of his toes were right here, and he could have measured that.
Yes.
And certainly, when there's no life-saving measures at play, you could have done the same thing with the drinking glass and the blood spots.
That's correct.
And in terms of recovering those blood spots, I'll get back to that in a second, but in terms of recovering those blood spots, you indicated that you used temporary evidence containers, correct?
Plastic cups, I said, yes.
Before responding to 34 Fairview, and you indicated that you were told to respond to 32 Fairview, right?
That is correct.
That was a mistake on either dispatch's part or something.
Correct.
You figured out where to go once you got there.
You can tell by the emergency lights.
It was Sergeant Good who contacted you, correct?
That is correct.
And you were at home at the time.
That is correct.
Which is why you needed to respond to Canton PD to get some foul weather here, correct?
Correct.
You also contacted Brian Albert's neighbor, someone by the name of Tom Keller, correct?
That is correct.
And you wanted to let him know that you were responding over to the scene.
Yes, he was the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time.
Lieutenant in charge of detectives and also the man who lived directly across the street from Brian Albert, correct?
I would say there's two property lines he's directly across from, 32 and 34.
Okay.
But yes, that vicinity.
Okay. Is there a reason that you didn't contact Chief Berkowitz on that day to let him know where you were responding? Why did you pick Deputy Chief Keller?
Because that would be my next call. Like I said, he is the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time. We were responding to a possible crime scene, a possible unattended death. He would be my call.
The normal chain of command.
Correct.
Okay. And you knew at the time that Chief Berkowitz was actually out on leave, having been injured on duty in some similar way.
I don't recall that. Chief Berkowitz is always present.
Not only did you respond to the scene, but either you were tasked by one of your superiors, or you, as the ranking officer on the. I guess I should ask this first. forgive me. Were you the ranking officer on scene when you arrived?
Yes, sir, I was.
So either having been tasked by one of your superiors, or because you were the ranking officer on scene, did you take over the coordination of the preservation of that crime scene?
Yes, I did.
So others were sort of answering to you.
Correct.
You indicated that you had never preserved a crime scene in the snow before.
That's correct.
30 years plus, and your policing experiences here in the Boston area?
Correct.
Snow's a lot.
Sure.
In 30 plus years, you've never processed a crime scene in the snow?
No, I have not.
Lucky you.
Well, we don't typically process our own crime scenes. Sometimes we use the state police, sometimes we use Plymouth County detectives.
So, save the state police, or setting them aside because they were not tasked on this call yet.
Right.
You were then in charge of preserving this crime scene, right?
That's correct.
What exactly did you do, if you can name the categories? What exactly did you do to actually preserve the entire crime scene?
I'm sure I can tell you that I had Sergeant Hood move all the cars so I could photograph the scene, document it by photo evidence. I told Detective Sergeant Lake, make sure he has initial statements from everybody present. And that's basically what we did prior to searching the scene itself.
With regard to Sergeant Lang, you told him to make sure that we had statements, your words, we had statements from all the witnesses that were at the scene.
Initial statements, yes.
Does that mean the people inside the house?
Yes.
Maybe people across the street, if there were people across the street?
No, it didn't include them at the time. It included people that were involved from the prior night's incident outing, I would call it.
At the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang with this responsibility, did you know personally that you were standing on the property of Brian Albert?
I did.
Did you also know that Sergeant Lang had an ongoing and a long-time relationship with the Albert family?
Objection.
Did you know that?
I know he knew them. I think you're mischaracterizing the relationship.
Did you see a problem with having somebody who knew the parties taking the initial statements from those parties?
Not at all. Sergeant Lake, no issue at all.
Not in your mind?
Not in my mind.
Were you aware that before you got to the location, that Sergeant Lang had taken it upon himself to already make contact with the individuals in the house?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar, please.
I see a conflict of interest.
66 and 1160.
People, I still say she was set up. I see a conflict of interest there. You know, where's the shoe? What happened to O'Keefe's shoe? You know, is they going to call that guy that they found the body in? Is the state or the witness going to call him? Do they take pictures of that guy's, you know, maybe there was a fight in the house. You know, reasonable doubt, people. You know, reasonable doubt. There's nothing said anything about blood work or breathalyzer on her. They seem like very smart defense lawyers.
Lieutenant, just before we went to sidebar, I'd asked a quick question. Were you aware at the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang to go talk to the folks inside the house that he had already gone into the house to talk to them?
Yes, I did.
You indicated that one of the reasons, I'd like to move back, I'm bouncing around a little bit, I apologize.
I understand.
One of the things that you talked about was the preservation of the crime scene and the lack thereof because of the inclement conditions.
Correct.
There was wind blowing from all directions.
Yes.
There was snow falling.
Yes.
It was icy cold out.
Yes.
There was already snow accumulated on the ground, about 4 inches, you said.
At least it was different spots because of the wind drifts.
Wouldn't that be even more of a reason in a potential homicide investigation to adequately preserve the scene as best you possibly could?
Of course.
Wouldn't you want to, for instance, protect the area? You mentioned a tent.
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to make sure that anybody from the civilian side and or officers don't just start traipsing through the middle of the crime scene?
That was all done.
As a matter of fact, the first responders the EMTs had already done what they needed to do in the scene, and Mr. O'Keefe had been transported to the hospital, correct?
That is correct.
So that was not a concern.
No.
So nobody needed to be inside that scene that wasn't authorized to be there.
That's correct.
Civilian or officers.
That's correct.
Who was it that told you specifically where John O'Keefe's body was?
I don't recall specifically. I had a collaborative meeting with Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good.
Were you aware at the time that you had the meeting with Sergeant Lank that Sergeant Lank did not ever see John O'Keefe's body in the position?
Yes, I did. I don't believe Sergeant Good did, to my knowledge. I believe John O'Keefe may have been in the ambulance at that time.
John O'Keefe, I'm sorry, I got a little confused. John O'Keefe may have been in the ambulance at which time?
When some of the officers arrived.
So if that were the case, then they wouldn't have any personal knowledge of where John O'Keefe's body was either.
Not to your precise locations, yes.
You mentioned the tent, and you said that you, in an answer to a question by Mr. Lally, you did not go back to Canton PD to get the tent. You had a tent in your trunk or something?
That's correct.
Okay. When you interviewed with Lieutenant Tully, did he specifically ask you, this was about a month ago, did he ask you about the tent?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were to review just a small snippet of your report, of his report?
Yes.
About your interview?
Yes.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Take that and direct your attention to paragraph 4. Tell me if you recognize that document.
I don't recognize the documents. First time I've seen it.
Fair enough. Does it read the highlighted portion and tell me whether that refreshes your recollection about a conversation you had with Lieutenant Tully about the tent?
Okay, I didn't
Read it to yourself.
Yes, okay.
You read that?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Do you recall telling Lieutenant Tully?
You can ask him if that refreshes his recollection.
Does that refresh your recollection at this point?
It doesn't change my recollection.
You said you didn't recollect exactly what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent, and I'm asking, does that refresh your recollection about what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent?
That's not what I said about the tent.
Okay, so you didn't say, I drove to Canton PD headquarters to retrieve a tent to protect the area where O'Keefe was found from falling snow, but never used the tent due to high winds.
We didn't have a tent at that time.
That wasn't my question. I'm being very specific. Did you say that to Lieutenant Tully?
No, that was misinterpreted.
Okay, so if he got that, if that's in his report, that's incorrect.
It's not accurate, correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that you read in that report that's not accurate?
You asked me to read the highlighted version. That's what I read. I didn't see, and I didn't read any other part of the document.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
You indicated, still staying at the crime scene on January 29th, you indicated on direct examination that the area adjacent to the blood stains that you saw and the drinking glass that you found, that area was somewhat trampled by, you presume, the first responders, the EMTs.
That's correct.
You also indicated that you didn't see any other signs of shoe prints going from the street to the house, correct?
From the scene to the house,
From
correct?
the scene to the house.
Correct.
Meaning, what do you mean when you say that, from the scene to the house?
So the house, you have the house, and the scene was to the far left, actually on the property line with number 32. So I didn't see any footprints. The only other footprints I saw was where the officers walked around and put up the crime scene tape.
Meaning walking through the yard
Correct.
and putting up crime scene tape.
Correct.
All right. And if somebody had, how many of those sets of prints did you see?
I don't recall.
Did you photograph or seek to have anybody else photograph the area from the scene to the house?
Just those long shots that you saw in the exhibits.
Okay. And the snow was actively falling at the time, correct?
Yes,
So if there had been a print a couple of hours earlier, you very well might not see it.
that is correct.
I'm a caller from Morgan County.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the collection of the blood. You found what you thought was blood initially, right?
That's correct.
Pink in color, reddish in color,
Correct.
and you began the process of removing layers of snow, in other words, dusting the area with a leaf blower.
That's correct.
Had you ever used a leaf blower in a crime scene preservation effort?
First time.
First time? And you indicated your testimony was temporary evidence containers to collect that blood, correct?
Yep, we utilized cups, plastic cups.
Those were red Solo cups, right?
That's correct.
The same kind of red Solo cup you drink beer out of at a barbecue?
Yeah, sure, you could.
Objection, Your Honor. Strike.
I'll allow it.
There's nothing special about the red Solo cup?
Other than their plastic, nothing special.
And where did you get those red Solo cups?
We got them from Lieutenant Kelleher.
So in other words, you got the, to use your words, the evidence containers from a neighbor.
Correct.
He had some Solo cups in his house.
We asked him if he had any plastic containers, any type of plastic container that we could utilize.
Evidence
How far were
tampering.
you from Kenton PD? From 34 Fairview to Kenton PD. Give me an idea.
Mile and a half.
So even in really bad weather, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, is that right, to drive?
Sure.
You didn't go back to Kenton PD to get actual evidence containers, correct?
We wouldn't have temporary plastic containers that what we were looking for. We're looking to take samples of snow. We wouldn't have had, I know for a fact we did not have those. We needed bags, needle containers, things of that nature. We're all set. But as far as plastic containers that we wanted to utilize, we didn't have them.
Do you have any glass containers?
No.
So Kenton PD does not have or utilize evidence collection containers that are plastic?
We have needle containers that are plastic. We have blood swabs that are in plastic containers. But for what we wanted to take a sample, we did not have. So we improvised.
My next question is, certainly Kenton PD employs and owns sterile swabs.
Correct.
Sterile swab is in a container that's long, and usually the swab is connected to the lid, pop it
Correct.
out, and then it's sealed
That's correct.
and forensically stable, correct?
Yes.
And the reason that it's sealed and forensically stable is so nothing can contaminate the sample, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Just as importantly, the blood sample can't contaminate anything else.
Correct.
Did you go to Kenton PD a mile away and get sterile swabs for the blood collection?
Blood was frozen. We didn't think it would be viable.
You didn't think it would be viable?
Correct.
If you touched the swab to cold blood, you think you might get some blood on that swab?
I wasn't sure it would be efficient for testing.
So what you did instead was you gathered red Solo cups from a neighbor, unsterilized, and scooped up the snow with what you thought the blood was, and just carried them back to the truck?
Nope, we took 6 samples, individual samples. Our philosophy was we'll let the crime lab extract it the way they best see fit. Those 6 samples were bagged and then transported back to Camp Police Headquarters and placed into evidence.
Were they covered?
No, not that I recall.
They weren't sealed in any way?
No.
So if somebody sneezed over the top of one of those cups?
They were sealed in a bag, brown evidence bag. That time, nobody was going to sneeze over the cup.
You have a rough estimate of how many people handled those red Solo cups before they were used to collect blood evidence in this homicide case?
You want me to estimate?
Give me an idea.
Sure, Sergeant Lang.
No, I'm sorry. My question was a bad one. Before you took possession of the red Solo cups, do you have any idea how many people before you had handled those Solo cups?
I took them out of a package, so probably none.
How about before they were packaged?
I assume Solo doesn't sell contaminated cups. I would say none.
So they're certainly not forensically stable. They're not sterile.
I don't know what definition you're looking for, but I would agree.
Do you think it's standard practice for a police department to borrow red Solo cups from a neighbor to gather evidence?
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that, Lieutenant.
Of course not. Nothing about the scene was standard.
Right. The glass shard. I'll touch on the Solo cups in just a second, but I want to talk about the glass shard of the drinking glass. Were you the one that found the drinking glass?
I was operating the leaf blower and uncovered the glass, yes.
So you were the first one, well, I guess you couldn't tell me if you're the first one, but you noticed it pretty quick.
I wouldn't say it was quick, but we uncovered it.
Okay. And then there is you mentioned a CARS report in your direct examination. There was a report done of where some of these items were found, correct?
You'll have to clarify. I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you mention a CARS report, which is a report of the crime scene, where things were located, mapping of those things?
You objected. It was sustained. I never got to answer that question.
Touche. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll show you the document and see if you recognize that.
I don't recognize it. I can tell you what it is.
That's okay. If you don't recognize it, that's all I need. Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you familiar generally, I don't necessarily need to talk about this one, but are you familiar generally with CARS reports?
Not at all.
Not at all? That's not sort of in your framework?
Not in my realm.
Okay. Are you aware that there is a process by which items of evidence are mapped, or they attempt to be mapped for a crime scene?
I'm not. I don't do homicide investigations. I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Again, with regard to where the blood drops were found, let me go back to one other question I had. You said you took 6 samples, correct?
That's correct.
Did you precisely indicate in any report or note or diagram exactly which blood drops were in which Solo cup?
I did not.
Okay.
Why not?
As you were using that snowblower and you uncovered the glass cup and more of the blood samples, at any point did you see a size 12 men's shoe black in color?
No.
At any point did you see a man's baseball hat black in color?
No.
You actually dug out a portion of you didn't dig it out and moved it with your foot, or somebody did, portion of the berm or the curb that separates the street from the yard, correct?
That is correct.
At any point along that curb line, did you see a men's shoe?
Along the exposed curb line, no.
Did you see it anywhere else?
No.
And you didn't see a hat anywhere else?
No.
You didn't see any bright red taillight material anywhere else?
I did not.
You did not see any clear taillight material?
I did. I did not.
You did not see any black plastic material? You certainly didn't see 45 pieces of plastic material.
I did not.
If you found a broken glass, if you find a broken glass on somebody's yard in a situation like this, did that seem out of place to you?
They were coming from a bar. It didn't seem totally out of place, no.
At the time that you found the broken glass, would you rationally think, well, maybe the rest of this glass is inside the residence?
No.
You did
Why
not think
not?
that.
No, there was a reason that I didn't think that.
Did you think that, well, let me ask you this. Did you ever go inside the house to search for the other part of the glass?
Absolutely not.
Why
Because you
not?
made up your mind initially where that glass came from.
Objection.
You can answer that, sir.
No.
Did you search the house for any other matching glasses?
No.
Matter of fact, you didn't search the house for any physical items, did you?
Of course not.
Is that because that house belonged to a Boston police officer?
No, it's because it requires probable cause, as you know, which we did not have.
Or at least you didn't think you had at that time.
We knew we didn't have it.
Did you seek it from a judge?
I'm familiar with what probable cause is.
Did you seek a probable cause warrant from a judge?
No, I did not.
Right. Did you ask for consent to search the house?
We wouldn't do consent, and that's in a death investigation.
Yeah, that was my question. My question
No,
is,
I did not.
okay. Is that because you were at the house of a Boston police officer?
No, it's because we wouldn't do it. Because if consent is denied, we still don't have probable cause, and we still couldn't search the house.
But you never asked, did you?
Never asked.
See, there's something wrong here, people. Why are the police covering this up?
According to your interview with Lieutenant Tully, after going to the scene the first time, you then returned back to Canton Police Department, correct?
Yes,
At that point, you remember having a conversation with Chief Berkowitz, correct?
that is correct.
And you indicated that having that conversation with Chief Berkowitz, that was about Canton Police Department recusing themselves.
Not doing any further investigative interviews, yes.
And you indicated actually in that conversation that you agreed with Chief Berkowitz that Canton should be recused, correct?
He agreed with me.
Your assessment that the recusal should take place,
Yes, it was.
and he agreed.
That is correct.
Okay. And the reason for that recusal was because of the relationship between the Albert family and.
No.
What was the reason for the recusal?
The reason was we had a Boston police officer on another Boston police officer's lawn, property, and that property owner was the brother of somebody in our investigative unit.
Okay. That's one way to put it. Another way to put it would be because of the Albert family having a relationship with the Canton Police Department.
It has to do with Detective Albert having a relationship with his family.
Right. Or the other side of that is his family having a relationship with Canton Police Department.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Go ahead. Move on, please.
What time was that conversation with Chief Berkowitz?
It was after 8 a.m. when we got back to the police department.
You then traveled back to 34 Fairview to interview the homeowners with Sergeant Lang?
Sergeant Lake was doing the interviews, yes, but I accompanied him.
Okay. Approximately what time did you arrive back at 34 Fairview to engage these interviews?
Approximately 9 o'clock.
Were you and Sergeant Lang well, let me ask this. At that time, did you know whether Sergeant Lang had already gone into the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you knew that you were not the first person to go in and make contact with the individuals inside the home. That was Sergeant Lang
Sergeant Lake and Sergeant Good, correct.
before you ever got there.
Correct.
Okay. Did they show you any documentation, notes, or anything of that initial interview?
No.
Do you know whether or not they took notes of that initial interview?
I don't.
Do you know whether they recorded that initial interview?
I know they did not.
You indicated that you personally knew Brian Albert. Is that right?
I knew him since I became a police officer, yes.
And so you indicated that you had a professional relationship with him, but not necessarily a personal relationship with him.
Correct.
Did you know that he was in the house before you walked in the house?
No, I did not.
What was your personal your professional interaction with Brian Albert before you walked into that house that day?
Previously?
Correct.
So in general, as a detective, he was with the fugitive unit at one point. He was helpful when we had a fugitive we needed to apprehend in Boston, things of that nature, job-related things.
Had you ever, for lack of a better phrase, hung out with Brian Albert?
Not a day.
Never socialized with him?
No. Not intentionally. It's possible if I went to a retirement party, could he have been present? Possibly, but not that I'm aware.
But you had no social relationship with him?
Zero.
You indicated that there were 5 or 6 people inside the house, including Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe.
Yes, that is correct.
So you clearly knew those 2 people.
I didn't know Jen McCabe. I know that Sergeant Lake was going to speak with her, but I didn't know her personally. I never had a conversation with her.
What was it about Jen McCabe that you recall, as opposed to the other 4 or 5 people that were in the house?
Sergeant Lake was talking to her.
You just remember that name?
That's who he went to talk to.
Got it. So he went back specifically with the intent of talking to Jennifer McCabe.
That's correct.
That's when you accompanied.
That is correct.
Was that interview recorded?
No,
Did you take any notes about that interview?
I did not.
Did you write a report about that interview?
I did not.
You said that there
Screwed
were,
up.
other than Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe, there were 3 or 4 other people in the house. Were those 3 or 4 other people in the house at the time that John O'Keefe was found dead or dying on the lawn?
I don't have the answer to that.
Did you think that might have been an important thing to find out?
Again, I didn't think of that at that time, and I didn't think it was important at that time. I knew that Sergeant Lake had already interviewed people in the house.
You had what you knew at that time, Lieutenant, was you had an officer, a Boston police officer, who was either dead or dying on the front lawn of a house with a bunch of occupants, and you didn't think that it was necessary to investigate or interview those occupants yourself?
No, I did not. At that time, I wanted to not participate in investigative interviews.
You did tell Lieutenant Tully in your interview with him, you volunteered that Brian Higgins was not present when you went back to the house, correct?
I didn't believe he was.
What, you didn't believe he was?
No, I don't recall Brian Higgins being there. I don't recall who the other people were at that time.
But Brian Higgins was not one of them.
I don't know the answer to that. He could have been. I can't say with certainty.
You know Brian Higgins.
I do.
Obviously, you know him well.
I do.
Matter of fact, you occupy sort of the same space at Kenton PD, correct?
That is correct.
You might see him most days out of the week.
No, but I know him.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you've got a social relationship with Brian Higgins as well.
I have been social with Brian Higgins, yes.
So you know him professionally and socially. You can't tell the jurors whether or not he was in that home when you went back over there to interview individuals about a Boston police officer who had fallen and was either dead or dying on the front lawn.
Objection.
Go ahead and answer that, sir.
I can't answer that question. I had no conversation with Brian Higgins, so I don't recall.
You do know that on January 29th, well, let me ask this foundationally, did you go back after that series of unrecorded interviews, did you go back to Canton Police Department and work the rest of the day?
Yes.
Brian Higgins was also at the station for nearly the entire day.
Again, I don't recall that.
You're aware that Brian Higgins had been granted a key card for the station?
Yes.
I'm guessing that is a relatively rare thing if you're not a Canton police officer to have a key card and full access to the station.
There were a couple of ATF agents that had that access, yes.
Okay, but he was one of them.
He was one of them, yes.
Is that access restricted, Lieutenant? In other words, does his key card work the same as your key card?
I don't know the answer to that.
He would have, to your knowledge, he roamed throughout the station at will, correct?
I don't know how he roamed. He's a very private person. You very rarely see him. His habits were he'd go up a front stairwell right to his office.
But his access, I guess I'm struggling with the question. His access was not limited to your knowledge.
I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that to my knowledge.
He could go into any door he wanted to.
I would doubt it.
You would doubt that it would be limited.
I would doubt he'd have unlimited access. The patrolmen don't have full access. It all depends by your grade. Where he's an outside agency, I'm sure he had limited access.
Who has access to the sound door?
The doors, only whoever's in the dispatch area, the overhead doors. There is one pedestrian door that everybody would have access to.
So he would have access to that as well.
Yes.
Where is Chief Berkowitz's office in relation to the rest of Canton PD, the physical building?
The best way to describe it, I don't know if the jury is familiar with the building, but if you were looking from Washington Street dead on, it's the top floor, far left office.
And is that, I don't know this, I'm not being, it's not rhetorical. Is it 3 floors, 2 floors?
So it's really 3 floors, but it's numbered 1, 1A, and 2.
So he would be on 2, 3 physical floors up.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you. When you had the meeting that you earlier described with Chief Berkowitz, where you indicated Canton PD needed to recuse itself, was that in his office or someplace else?
I was in the office of the detective sergeant.
Which is where?
It's on floor 1A.
All right, we're going to take a 5-10 minute break.
Why didn't he take notes? If they interview the other person, did they take any pictures of his face or wrote anything that they might saw if they interview that cop? People, I hate to say it, it's a screw-up investigation. Yeah, it says Karen Reed is accused of driving drunk and hitting her boyfriend. I've never heard any evidence of her being drunk, taking blood work, a breathalyzer, unless I missed something somewhere, people. I hear a train going in the background behind me. But, like I say, around 12 o'clock, I'm going to cut off. Because I got things I got to do today and all this. You're welcome to go to Law and Crime, watch it, Court TV, or other people's YouTube channels. I want to thank all you YouTube people, new and old. I'm asking you old people, I'm not saying you're old, but been on YouTube for years, that the people you have helped. I'm asking for your all's help to help get my subscribers up, help you get my watch hours up. I listened to you all because you all said you want court cases. I've done it because you all said it will improve my subscribers. You know, I love court cases. I've been with police officers on the crime scene back in my younger days. Somehow these police officers screwed up in my book. I say I'm not a police officer, not a lawyer, don't have any degree. I used to be a reporter for a couple of newspapers back in my younger days. And something's fishy in Denmark. I'm not talking about the country Denmark. It's just an old saying. Something's wrong. You know, evidence is blotch. You know, what's wrong here, people? I know there's a whole lot of smart people that been on a jury. What's screwed up here, people? I'm asking you all. Reed claims that she is a victim of a massive frame-up by state and local police. I believe it. You all YouTubes that does stuff like this, you know, like in Bakersfield, like RD on the Scene, Kern County Crime Watchers, White T-Shirt Media, DUI Guy, The Expert. I love you, Expert Guy. I know you don't know me from Adam, but I like to get my subscribers up, The Expert Guy. You know, I found out that the women that I've been on their YouTube channel, you know, Hot Damn and Ellen and them, they love it when the wiggles come up. They also love that when I got a super chat, but those ladies likes that, the wiggles. You know, I didn't know that the White Rabbit was your better half until a couple of nights ago. You're a lucky man to have a sweet lady like that. Don't make her mad. I saw it the other night. She got off camera, came around, kind of smacked you. Sometimes I think you deserve it. But Expert and all your other people, hope you have a good trip to Dolly World, which is next weekend, I believe. You all have a good trip. And MG Law, you're a good person. You explain your shows in details where us people who slow, not dumb, but slow, you explain it and where we can understand. That's what I like about MG Law. And other people, it's on there. I think it's one guy, I forget what his YouTube, but I think he's in Korea, I believe. I think he's a pretty nice young man. But remember your old-time YouTube. I'm not saying because you're old, but you've been on YouTube a long time. Just don't forget about us new people. Help us out. You know, help us get those 1,000 subscribers or more, or 4,000 watch hours. Help us out. That's all I'm asking, that you help me and the other new YouTubers out there to get that 1,000 subscribers where we can get monetized or whatever you call it. And last night I done a short video on poetry. I haven't seen how many views it have since last night. I might do that maybe one day a week and upload it. I have problems pronouncing words. My YouTube channel is about my life, my everyday life, and talking about abused women who gets abused. And me being a city boy, learning how to be a country boy. It's a lot different, people. You know, in the city, you got water and sewage. Out here in the country, where I live in Clark County, Indiana, I got water in the septic tank. And some of you, it's kind of quiet out here in the country. But you remember, in the country, on a septic tank, you got a little garbage can you keep next to your toilet with a bag in it. Throw you TP in it, your monthly things for your ladies, and your man, your raincoats, you put in the garbage can. You don't flush none of that stuff into your septic tank, because that won't break down in a septic tank. Make sure you use the stuff like Red X or other natural stuff that really dissolve it. I want to thank you all very much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I ask you to suggest ideas for me to improve my YouTube channel. You all help me out a little bit. YouTube has helped me out. You know, I want to thank you all, because us new YouTubers can't do it without your all's help. We need people like the expert, Umbrella Guy, Megan Fox, all you all to help us out to increase our subscribers. So that's what I'm doing. I'm asking for your all's help. You know. But you got some YouTubers out there, it's hate crimes, occult, and they lie. You know, I don't like that. God does not, no matter where you're at in the USA or the country, you got your religion. You know what your religion says about hate. You know, that's the problem in this world. We got too much hate. We want to make war. You know, like I love Russia. Back when I was a teenager, you used to have some pen pals back in the teenager years, you know, 12, 13 years old, you can join a pen pal group. I had some from Russia, Finland, other places. I think that was great back there then. I love you all country, especially Russia. I watch a bunch of your videos where the young child is singing the song. I don't know what they say, but it gets to me. I love listening to good music. But I don't think the USA should get in Russia and Ukraine's war. You know, I think we should stay neutral. I don't think we should send weapons, tanks and stuff like that over to Ukraine. As being a veteran, it's being a traitor to the people of the USA by getting involved in somebody else's war. You all remember when Trump was in there. Trump got along with Russia, got along with Ukraine. You know, they knew he would fight back. They didn't want a war. But every time you look back at the other war, Vietnam War, Democrats was in power. You know, think about it, people. They wanted to get us in war. It's only my opinion. You all have your opinion. That's okay. You know, this is just how I feel. We got homeless people. We got homeless veterans out there. Let's take care of us first. Let's take care of the homeless people. It's not their fault they're homeless. They either lost their job, lost their house. You know, it happens every place in the world. You know, let's help us out first. I can understand if a hurricane or what is it, you know, the water comes up, atomic or, you know, stuff like that. I can see that. But in a war, I don't see us helping it. Let's take care of our people first. They're number one. You people that's in Washington, D.C., you work for we the people. How come you don't listen to we the people? She's a very cute lady.
Thank you. Close back in session. Maybe see you.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. You had started to tell us who at the scene who handled those solo cups. Can you describe that for us, please?
I handled them to the scene. Sergeant Lang collected the samples.
Under your supervision?
Yes.
Did anybody other than Sergeant Lang handle those solo cups?
No.
So once they were in his possession, they remained in his possession until they were booked into evidence?
They were bagged, placed in Sergeant Lang's vehicle. He transported them to Camp Police Headquarters, transported it into the office, and logged them in as evidence, yes.
Did you watch all that happen?
I did not.
You did not. So you're presuming those next steps after he was out of your view?
I know that because he told me so.
Well, that's hearsay. Move to strike, Your Honor.
All right, I'll strike the end of that.
Thank you. Not what he told you, what you observed.
I did not observe him place it in evidence, yes.
At what point did you lose sight of those solo cups?
When I got in my vehicle to leave the scene.
So once the solo cups were in his, you saw them go in the brown paper bag.
That's correct.
The evidence bag. Then you saw them go in the truck.
That's correct.
And at that point, you don't have any personal information about what happened to those solo cups. Personal observations.
Until I removed them from temporary evidence, I have no recollection. Correct.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about once you were inside the home. You've already indicated that you did not seek a search warrant. You did not seek consent to search the home, correct?
That's correct.
Did you look around the house for any sign of a struggle or a fight?
No.
Did you go to the basement at all?
No.
Had you ever been in the house before that morning at 9 a.m.?
Never.
Sorry?
Never.
Okay. Did you go to the backyard?
No.
Did you personally observe whether or not that house has a bulkhead door that services the basement?
I have no idea.
Did you photograph any portion of the house?
The front of the house.
Sorry, bad question. Good point. Inside the house, did you photograph any part of the house?
No.
Did you have a cell phone with you?
Yes.
Has a camera on it?
Yes.
You could have photographed it, you chose not to.
I would have needed permission or a warrant.
And you got neither.
That's correct.
You sought neither.
That's correct.
Did you photograph any of the individuals in the home for injuries or anything like that?
No.
Did you or Sergeant Lang separate the witnesses before they were interviewed?
There was only one witness he was interviewing,
Who was that?
Jen McCabe.
Where was everybody else in the house?
I believe they were all in the same area. The kitchen, I believe, was.
Communicate with and among one another.
Sure. Yes.
And I think you already answered this, but I'm going to ask it just to make sure I'm clear. None of that interview of Jim McCabe was not recorded in any way. Audio or video recorded.
Correct.
How long were you inside the house for that interview?
10 minutes, maybe.
Other than Jim McCabe being interviewed, were any of the other witnesses inside that house asked any questions by Sergeant Lank or by you?
No, not that I believe so. Not that I recall.
Were you the person on February 1st who gave access to the Massachusetts State Police to the Sallyport?
I was probably one of them. The Sallyport doors can only be opened by dispatch.
Did you approve or authorize those doors to be opened for purposes of MSP coming in, Massachusetts State Police coming in and processing that vehicle?
I don't know if I specifically did it at that point, but I certainly would, yes.
You knew that the vehicle had been in that Sallyport since January 29th in the afternoon, correct?
I don't believe what point I knew it was in the Sallyport, but I did know it was there for days before, yes.
Okay. And if it had been there from January 29th to February 1st, that's 3 full days.
That's correct.
From the time that SUV arrived and was situated in the Sallyport, how many people had access to that truck, that SUV?
How many people had access to the Sallyport, or is that one? Are you asking one
I'm
of
going
the
to say
I would say the entire department.
dozens,
Yes, correct.
hundreds.
No, we're very small.
I don't know that, so
We're probably 45.
45. And just about every one of those 45 people would have access to that Sallyport and that SUV had they wanted to.
Had they wanted to, yes.
And that 45 doesn't include Brian Higgins.
It probably does, but he would have access as well.
Thank you. Those same individuals that would have access to the SUV inside the Sallyport very obviously would also have access to anything else that had been placed in the Sallyport along with the SUV, correct?
That is correct.
Did you photograph or cause to be photographed that SUV immediately upon its arrival into the Sallyport on January 29th?
I wasn't working, no.
Did anybody, to your knowledge, seek to photograph the condition of that vehicle immediately when it arrived at the Sallyport?
I wasn't there, I can't say.
You've certainly never seen any photographs from January 29th immediately when that SUV was brought into the Sallyport, right?
Other than our evidence, I haven't seen any evidence in this case.
You indicated that Massachusetts State Police was having some difficulty removing the light. We saw a short snippet of the video, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Who made the decision to even remove the taillight? Was that Canton PD or was it Massachusetts State Police?
That would have been somebody within the state police.
Okay. And then you contacted Officer Wanless to actually facilitate the removal of that light, right?
I contacted dispatch to ask Officer Wanless to return.
And you knew at the time that Officer Wanless was a sworn Canton police officer.
That's correct.
But Lieutenant Gallagher, you told us just a few minutes ago that you and the chief, actually you and the chief agreed that the Canton Police Department was completely recused from this case and the investigation based on a conflict of interest, correct?
No, you're spinning it. What I said was from participating in investigative interviews.
So they could take part, Canton Police Department could take part in any other part of the investigation, according to you, with the exception of investigative interviews?
We can open doors, we can facilitate things, yes. There's nothing, no. Yeah, if it's an assist, round peg, round hole, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so in other words, Canton Police Department, notwithstanding the conflict of interest, was still allowed to participate in the investigation of the Karen Reed matter.
There was no conflict of interest. I said appearance of conflict of interest, so we have to be careful. I didn't believe there was a conflict. I honestly believe we could have investigated this case, but it wasn't the appearance of such a conflict.
You also didn't believe that there was probable cause to search the house either.
I know
That answer will stand. It's stricken, and so's the question.
So Canton Police Department was, in fact, at your authority, given permission to manipulate that light in terms of pulling it out of the SUV, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Canton Police Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling onto the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sallyport in Canton PD's custody.
You have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Just take a look at that photograph and tell me if you recognize it.
I don't recognize the photographs. First time I've seen it.
Do you recognize what's depicted in the photograph?
It's a broken taillight.
Does that appear to be the taillight that was removed during the process that we saw in the video just a few minutes ago under direct examination?
I can only assume it is. I never examined the light.
So you kind of assume. So can you answer the question, Lieutenant?
No.
You don't recognize it?
No.
Okay, and were you, I didn't see you on the video, but it was a very dark video. Were you there?
Yes, I'm in the gray shirt.
Okay. Were you there as Officer Wanless was actually removing the taillight from the vehicle?
Not sure. I'd have to watch the video again.
Okay. Do you recall if pieces and parts were being broken off and shattered while he was removing it?
Not at all.
May I approach?
Yes.
Were you the person who actually recovered? I think you did answer this. You were not the person who knelt down and actually recovered the blood droplets.
Correct.
That was Sergeant Lyon.
That's correct.
When you gave the, sorry, let me rephrase that. Was it you or Sergeant Lang that put the solo cups into the evidence bag?
Sergeant Lang.
Was that in your presence?
Yes.
Okay. How long before, after he put the solo cups in the evidence bag, did he put the evidence bag in his truck?
Seconds, less than a minute.
And then how long did the truck sit there until he left or you left and you were no longer able to observe it?
He left immediately.
You were at the location the location of the Sallyport on February 3rd. You've already testified to that, correct?
No, I testified February 1st.
I'm sorry, my mistake. February 1st. You also indicated that at your direction that Sergeant Lang booked the solo cups into the evidence locker.
That's procedure, yes.
Right. I understand it's procedure. I'm asking if he actually did it.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see a log of that?
Excuse me?
Did you see a log of that?
I saw the police report.
Which police report?
The original call.
Okay. And in that police report, he indicated that he took the solo cups back to Canton Police Department and booked them into evidence, right?
It was given a property number and assigned to temporary evidence.
And when something is given a property number, is there an officer working that property area to assign the property numbers?
No, the officer placing the property into evidence assigns the property number himself.
I see. So that officer would assign a property number and physically place that into temporary, what's it called again?
Temporary evidence until the evidence officer takes custody of it.
Okay. Did an evidence officer actually take custody of these items?
No, because it was being transferred to the state police, so it wasn't going into our permanent evidence locker.
So where did those cups sit for the 3 days between January 29th and February 1st?
In a refrigeration unit in temporary evidence.
And is there a log to sign in and sign out to make sure that the chain of custody of items like this are maintained?
The evidence officer keeps that log, yes.
Is there any log, Lieutenant Gallagher, of these items being booked into the temporary evidence locker?
There should be, but I don't know for a fact, but there should be, yes.
I agree there should be. I'm asking you if there is.
I don't know the answer to that.
The fact of the matter is, there is no log or document or report ever showing that these items were ever booked into the temporary evidence locker at Canton PD. Isn't that right?
I don't believe that's accurate.
Do you have that evidence log?
I don't. I don't have access to the evidence log.
Did you get access to the evidence log?
No.
You're a supervisor at Canton PD. Why
That's
would you
correct.
not have access to the evidence log?
I think only 2 or 3 people have access to evidence.
Who would they be?
The evidence officer,
Which is who?
Paul DiGiapietro, Sergeant,
Can you spell that for us, please?
DIGIAMPIETRO.
Who else?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm assuming the chief of police,
Chief Berkowitz, I would assume.
most likely.
Deputy
But I don't know. Possibly, yes.
Head of detectives?
No,
Any other lieutenants or supervisors?
I don't believe so. I know I don't have access as a lieutenant.
If there's no evidence log of an item being booked into evidence, that's a pretty good indicator that it actually never made it into the evidence log, evidence locker, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
We do know that wherever it went, the blood items went back to, and the glass went back to Canton PD, correct?
That's correct.
Aaron, just told me on.
Yes.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant, I'm going to ask you kindly to take a look at those 4 photographs, and then once you've had a chance to review them, just look up at me. I'll ask you a couple.
Did you see them?
I don't know what was just handed to the witness. So.
Why don't you go take them from the witness? Take a look.
There you go. There's copies right there as well.
Caller names that we have Michael Hofsteller in 502
Thank you.
548 861 502 548
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm sure there's 4 or 5.
Okay.
Take your time.
I'm all set.
Do you recognize those photos, or what's depicted in those photos?
Yes.
Do you recognize the time frame those photos would have been taken?
Yes.
Based on context?
Yes.
February 1st, correct?
I have no idea. If it was February 1st, but it would be between the 29th of January and February 1st.
Fair enough. Your Honor, may I publish?
Okay. Have they been introduced?
They have not yet been introduced, Your Honor. I'm sorry, protocol-wise, I missed that step. I need to ask that these be marked as next in order.
Okay.
4
Is there
photographs.
any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Take- Thank you. Taking a look at what's been.
Hold on. They're still being marked, and the court reporter has to record everything you say.
Thank you.
Okay.
And with the court's permission, Lieutenant, I'm going to try to go in the same order, so you might want to glance at this photograph to make it better visual for you. I'd like to ask you if you recognize what's depicted in this photograph, especially the area right down here on the right, bottom right. See that white rag?
I do.
Lieutenant, if you take a close look at that rag, I'm going to ask you to identify it on the photograph. Do you see a couple of little dark marks on what appear to be that?
I see it on that screen.
Better visual up there. Okay, fair enough. What's the position of that rag as it relates to the vehicle in the photograph?
It's the rear passenger side.
Right rear quarter panel, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And is that, in fact, the SUV in question?
I believe it is.
Okay. The SUV that belonged to Miss Reed?
I believe it is.
Okay. Let's take a look at the, excuse me. It's 37.
37. Okay.
Is this 37? John, for the record, we were just speaking about.
If you look at the picture
Okay.
right here, the tail lights does not look like it's busted out.
Looking
So,
at 38, does that appear to be the same rag in the photograph?
It does, yes.
Okay. You see a shadow sort of looming over the top of the photograph?
I do.
Given what you just said about evidence item 37, does that appear to be the shadow of the right rear quarter panel of the truck?
I would guess it's the tailgate.
So you can't guess.
I would say it was the tailgate. The tailgate's up, maybe tailgate's up at this point.
You see a bag in the middle of the photograph.
Yes.
We read what's on that bag.
Stop and shop.
Okay, that does not look like an evidence bag, does it, sir?
No.
Matter of fact, it looks like a grocery bag.
Correct.
All right?
Yes.
So, not a forensically stable item, correct?
Correct.
Certainly not sterile.
Correct. Correct.
You know where that bag came from?
I do not.
Was that a bag that you supplied to Sergeant Lang?
I do not know. Do not recall.
Lang got the Stop and Shop bag.
I do not know.
Next photograph, please. 39. Taking a look at what's been marked as evidence item 39, you recognize what's in the middle of the photograph.
Yes.
What is that?
Those are the plastic cups with the coagulated blood.
look
See
at the
on top of
cups.
the photograph
They don't have lids
right?
on it.
I do.
with the same markings.
Yes.
That
What's-
appear that those unsealed cups with liquid blood in them are situated right near the right rear quarter panel of the SUV. In this photograph,
They are to the rear of the vehicle. Yes.
and next,
Them lids is supposed to be sealed. I know police technician got like petri dishes.
this appears to be
It's
evidence
to
item
be
41,
sealed.
sorry, 40. You
This
see
is
the
wrong.
same white
This
rag.
is
Yes.
wrong right here.
And you see the same evidence bag, Stop and Shop bag, correct?
Correct.
And it's filled with 6 solo cups
Correct.
with what appears to be liquid blood.
Correct.
Does that photograph appear to be taken at or about the same place near the right rear quarter panel of the SUV?
It's actually, I would say that the mat is the mat to the entrance to the booking area, so that is probably a couple of feet behind the vehicle.
Okay. Let's go back to evidence item number 37. Should be the first photograph. You see the rag in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Let's go to the next item.
Look up here. That tail light is not busted out. Look at the.
Now you see the mat. And it's, I'm sorry, I should note this for the record, we're now looking at 38. You see the mat and the rag in this photograph?
I do.
And you see a tire on that mat?
Yes.
That's a golf cart of some sort that belongs to the Canton Police Department.
It's a Kubota, yes.
A Kubota, thank you. Looks like the rag is in the same spot?
Yes.
All right. So the blood inside the Stop and Shop bag is sitting right next to the right rear quarter panel of that truck, correct?
It's not a sterilized
You can see the rear
evidence
tire,
bag.
like, it's probably at least 3 feet from the rear. If you look at the top, I can use the marker here. This appears to me to be the rear tire, which would put this a couple of feet behind the vehicle.
Understood. Okay, that's all I have. Lights. Would you agree that having unsealed and unsecured blood next to the right rear portion of the SUV is a recipe for cross-contamination?
You want me to speak to, if I could speak to this incident alone?
That's a yes or no question. Do you think
Okay,
that's
it's not yes or no, but for your purposes, I would say yes.
And in fact, could even be worse, for instance, not just inadvertent cross-contamination. Somebody wanted to touch something on that bag, on those cups, and then touch the vehicle. They could easily do that with that juxtaposition of the open blood next to the back of the rear of the car.
Objection.
Sustained.
Lieutenant, if somebody was so inclined, that situation could provide an opportunity for evidence tampering, couldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I have nothing further this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Lally?
It's just briefly, Your Honor. Now, Lieutenant, if I could ask you, phrase that was posed to you a couple times during cross-examination as far as the refusal of your department. How would you define that term in this specific sense?
In this specific case,
Yes.
we did not want to go on any investigative interviews because one of our best investigators, name is Kevin Albert. He's the property owner's brother, and we didn't think it would be appropriate if we were on those interviews questioning his family members.
Now, with regard to death investigations, specifically unattended death investigations, what, if any, role does your department typically have when it comes to those? What, if any, jurisdiction does your department have versus the state police?
The state police takes jurisdiction. They run the investigation. We assist them in any way we can and try to help out.
Now, sir, you were asked some questions in regard to, or you indicated that in regard to the drinking glass that you located in the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, that it didn't come from the house. Why is that?
I think I said I believe we didn't think it came from the house at that time because they were out at the Waterfall Bar and Grill the night before, and the initial statements from Detectives Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good obtained, nobody put John O'Keefe anywhere but where he was found, and that included his girlfriend.
Now, if I could take a step back just to the state police jurisdiction over unattended deaths, what if any assets the state police have as far as investigative assets that your department doesn't?
They have far superior tools to investigate. They have direct access to the crime lab. They have a CARS team that can do accident reconstruction.
Now, with regard to the criminal list and turning your attention to February 1st of 2022 when you're in the Sally Board, you mentioned that Officer Wanless came in with a toolkit to assist in removing the tail, correct?
That's correct.
And is it your understanding essentially he just removed a clip on the back of the tail light in order to take it out of the vehicle?
I believe you can see on video it just pops into the criminalist stands.
And as far as your review of that video or your observations that day, there was nothing about the tail light that was broken during that removal process, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as cross-contamination, you were asked about, you indicated it was not a yes or no answer, but what, if anything else, would you have to add?
What counsel was depicting was the transfer of custody over to the state police. So the criminologist was handling it at that time. The photographer was photoing it. The criminologist was transferring the blood into their plastic containers. And that's why I'm sure it was being handled by a criminologist. It wasn't going to be any cross-contamination. I wasn't concerned about cross-contamination.
So that was a scenario that you were describing earlier in your direct examination as far as you're turning those items physically over to the criminalist on February 1st in the Sally Board.
And they are converting them to their plastic containers, yes.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Okay.
Very briefly, you said that no one but John O'Keefe, none of the witnesses put John O'Keefe anywhere but where he was found. That's what you just said, correct?
That's correct.
So your investigative technique is just to ask a witness, how'd that dead body get there? And if they say, I have no idea, your job's just done, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
If a witness says, we found him here, you just take the witness at their word?
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that, sir.
No, of course not.
You might want to investigate a little further, right?
Absolutely.
And ask them questions.
That is correct.
Get search warrants.
That's
Look
when
in the
there's
house.
probable cause, we do. Absolutely.
None of that was done here, though.
No probable cause.
Thanks, that's all I have.
You are all set, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Okay. Who is your next witness, Mr. Lau?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth to call Sergeant Sean Good to the stand.
Okay, and while the sergeant's coming in, I'll see counsel about schedule.
I want to thank you all for watching. I got to get off of here. I want to thank you all people that have subscribed today. I got to get ready to leave. I got to make sure I make a head call before I leave because it's a long drive where I have to go. So I'll be doing a video on my trip in the vehicle. Kind of like a dash cam. So I want to thank you all. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, make any comments, let me know how you like it. I'm asking for the expert or you other VIP YouTubers, help me out. Maybe invite me to your channel. I don't know the link to my YouTube channel. I'm not that smart to figure it out, where to go. It's Tom Cartwright 4375 on YouTube. That's all I know, people. I'm 70 plus years old. You all have a great day. Drive safe. If you're going to work or any place you have to go, take it easy. God bless you all.